97.9 The Beat, DFW Hip Hop Station. It's your boy J-Kruz checking in. I am here with an array of police officers, as you can tell on my screen right now. So let me throw this out there. Arturo Martinez over there, street level police officer. Me and Arturo go way back. Yeah, I know you're a police officer, but I know you as a person. You've done security at events that I've worked at, that I hosted. The toy drive we do every year at the Texas Fades. We see each other every year.
Yep.
You're a part-time DJ. Again, I know you more as an everyday person than I do as a police officer, because I've never had interaction with you as a police officer, if you know what I mean, right? You've never pulled me over or anything like that. Not that you would have to, because I don't break the law. Obviously, what's going on right now in our country is serious. People are angry. People are scared. People are confused. Emotions are mixed. And I'd like to get your opinion. You guys ever feel like you're caught in the middle, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Jolie is a little different. I don't like to continue the narrative that there is a side. And so, to say
please do. To say
that we're caught in the middle would assume that there is a side to choosing this. And as you mentioned before, everybody you see on this screen, not only do we work at the police department, but we are people of color. Right. And so, when it comes to the issues that we see happening in our country, not just now, but historically, I always say there's a side of right, and then there's the other side. And so, there's really no middle to be torn in between, because I know these individuals on the screen personally and on this call personally, and I know that, we continue to try to stand on the side of right.
Just to throw this out there, and you can individually answer this, when you guys saw the George Floyd video, what did you think? As police officers, what was the first thought that crossed your mind? And you guys can go individually.
Roman, Arturo, I'll let y'all.
All right, I'll go first. Hey, Cruz, it's Lieutenant Roman here. When we first saw that, it was the shock, the disgust, the pain, and just as being a human being, you see that and you just know that wasn't even right. No matter what was going on, we've been in those situations. I've been in those situations where you've had somebody resist and they take them to the ground, but never in my right mind have we ever, you take them, you get what force you need to be used, and then you sit them up, and then you get them to start taking care of them, and then go on with the arrest process. We have a rule here at DPD. Once you get the handcuffs on them, everything else is done, and then we just go on with the process. But when we saw that, when I saw that personally, it upset me, and I knew that right then, for 2020, that was I knew that was going to be a spark,
a game changer.
That was going to change a lot of things for sure.
Yeah.
I'd say for me. Oh, you got more, Lieutenant? I'd say for me, seeing it, knowing how Dallas PD is trained, it hurt us seeing that, because we know that we as Dallas officers aren't trained that way. We don't put our knees in people's necks. So it was disheartening to see that. And, no one deserves that. I think even our chief went out and, we've denounced the actions. And at the same time, we still have a responsibility as cops to speak up for what's right and what's wrong. And that was definitely wrong.
Mr. Drakes?
Well, as for me, just like LT said, I was disgusted when I saw it. And I'm an Army guy. I was in the Army for 8 years, so I've seen some things. At first, when I heard about it, I still haven't seen the whole entire thing, because I kind of don't want to see it.
I understand.
We've been down this road before. I didn't mind when I heard it, because depending on how things happen, you may have to put your knee somewhere where it shouldn't go, but not for that long. A reasonable amount of time to get him in cuffs. Once he's in cuffs, it's over, like LT said. But when I saw it, I was like, unbelievable. The cops around him didn't do anything. As far as listening to the people who was watching what was going on. Now you had this one cop who was making sure the crowd didn't get, near what was going on.
Right.
the people are telling him he's killing him. The people were saying he's not moving. When you hear that, that should ignite something in your mind to say, let me look back and see what's going on. That didn't happen. So I was very, very disturbed to see that.
Would you, as an officer, tell your fellow officer in that situation, stop it? Would you intervene?
First and foremost, those duty to intervene, we've had those for years. That's been part of the protocol, part of our tactics, techniques, and protocols that we've always had. Also, our standard operating procedure. Now we're having to codify it so people can see it, that it's written down.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that we already teach that's part of the curriculum. And it may not be written, but written down, but we teach it. It's part of the lesson plan. So you see somebody, and sometimes some people get caught what we call the, they just get caught in what's called a goofy loop. They've just been taught to go to a certain point, and then they don't know what the next level is, right? It's kind of like somebody, like, hey, I need to, it's like the dog trying to catch a cat. The dog's running after the cat, and then one day it catches it, but he doesn't know what to do. So
what to do with it.
Now when we have that training is once you have somebody meet you with force, and there's a couple of you guys doing it, and you see somebody like, hey, you need to calm down, get back, I got it.
Right. And
you keep that person from going overboard. And you have to look out for each other before either A, we get in trouble or somebody else gets in trouble. And when you get done, we do what's called an after action report. Matter of fact, I think everybody on here is part of a military family. Myself, I was in the Marine Corps. I know Art was in the Army. Drakes was in the Army. And
Jolie, you too, Jolie?
She's a family.
I'm on mute. I was just a military brat. Grew up in Fort Hood, so my brother went to the Navy. My mom was in the Army, and so I got mad love for the military.
Absolutely. Okay.
So that being the case, whenever we take on different actions and a lot of what's called critical incident reviews, we review what happened from the day before, and those are some of the tactics and techniques that we have. Even as a commander, we do that today. So from training to real world application to the review to see what we can do to do better.
So what I'm gathering is it's pretty much an unspoken rule. Like, yes, you intervene. You don't let another officer commit a crime in front of your eyes. You intervene.
Right. And before that, it's not a crime, before it gets to that point, before that person is, they get so worked up that they lose control of themselves.
Right. I got
so
you.
It's a safety thing for them before it becomes a crime.
Because police officers,
that,
because police officers are human and they can lose their temper and they can lose control. And sometimes they might need a fellow police officer to tell them, hey, yo, go over there and relax. I got this.
Yeah.
So even on critical issues, go ahead, Art. Go ahead.
Yes. So like you said, in the past, it was unspoken. Unfortunately, we had the catalyst of George Floyd, and now what Chief Hall has done to rectify that, it is now official. It's a new general order. It's a part of what we're doing now to try to rectify the issue. That way, in the future, it doesn't happen. That way, those around him will be held just as responsible as the officer committing the action. So now the duty to intervene policy states, either step in or you're going to be just as in trouble. I wouldn't call it an incentive. It's whatever the counter to incentive is. It's a punishment for someone who doesn't intervene. It's a duty to intervene. So now it's official. Before it was unspoken, just like Lieutenant Roman said. Now it's an official rule. It's in our general orders. I'm sorry that it took George Floyd, but now it's there for the future.
Okay. And this is Jolie. I'm gonna drop a little. I'm getting my doctorate, so I gotta drop all this knowledge that I'm paying.
School us. Come on.
It's also called the bystander effect. So it's not just something that cripples officers in an incident. It cripples what they call civilians, the average Joe. The bystander effect cripples us into not knowing what to do next, and we're caught in a moment of just watching or not acting or not doing the thing that we think we would do. Right now in this moment, none of our adrenaline is going. We're not in a life or death situation, so we can critically think through what we would do in that situation. There is something called the bystander effect that does take over sometimes when we're in those critical incidents. Thankfully, And hopefully our officers are being trained in such a way that they can remain in that critical thinking space, so that if they're in an incident like that, they can say, hey, bro, you know, sis, let's ease up. Let me take this. Let me handle this. And some of the training that some of the departments are doing is, how can you say in a way, if you see your peer, if you see your brother and sister in blue, if you see them going too far, as Lieutenant Roman said, before it even becomes a crime, if you see that they're angry and they're taking things a little too far, is there something you can do? A tap on the shoulder, hey, I got this, bro. Go ahead and go back to the car, you know, or can you check this person's driver's license or something like that, to help get that person out of whatever is happening in that moment. Right. What's that loop you call, Lieutenant Roman?
OODA loop. OODA loop.
That loop right
loop.
there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That goofy loop.
A goofy loop.
Oh, I'm sorry. The tactical term is OODA loop. Observe, orientate, decide, and act. The regular person, or even police officers, we call it the goofy loop. You just keep saying, get down, get down, get down, get down. The person gets down, and you're still yelling, get down, get down, get down. You have to almost hit that person in the back of the head to get the next one to say, hey, hold it, got it, Art, you got it, I'll cover you, and then he'll make the arrest.
Gotcha. It's unfortunately, on top of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, and most recently George Floyd, we also have Rayshard Brooks, which I, to myself, can't understand how this could happen during this period of time. We're human, we all make mistakes, but I don't even, I can't.
But I mean, you like the rest of us looking at this from the
right.
outside.
So I would just like to get a quick opinion of the whole Rayshard Brooks from each of you, if I could, please.
Right, Drakes.
Yes.
This is my opinion. This is
absolutely.
I haven't watched all of that either. I do know. I looked it up, and it shows that a taser is considered a lethal weapon. So I'm like, okay. So it's a possibility that he could have killed the officer. Maybe it's a high possibility, low possibility, but the possibility is still there. So you meet deadly force with deadly force, So that's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm also thinking, before that it got to that point, could he have let him walk to, I think he said his sister or some family member lived in the apartments right there. Could he have gotten the vehicle towed away so he couldn't drive? I don't know what their procedure is for someone driving like that. I hate it happened. I hate it was in the back. And if I can for a second, it didn't happen this way, but if I can for a second, Chief Hall has a community advisory board. And during that board, the community members get a chance to come to RBT training, where we have screens, huge screens, that gives you an idea of what goes on through an officer's mind. And you get the gun, and you get to do different things. I myself had the gun. I knew what the guy was going to do, right? The suspect was going to do. He was going to shoot at me. I didn't pull my gun from my hip. I had it, and I was pointing at him. This is during the RBT, reality-based training. I knew what he was going to do. He was going to shoot at me and take off running. Me knowing that, I was able to shoot him, right? I shot him in the back. Even though I knew what was going on, even though I knew everything that was going to happen, I still shot him in the back. Even though this wasn't the same thing, that's how things can happen out in the field. And the OODA loop, the OOVA loop, I know certain things goes through an officer's mind. Every officer is different. Those are the things that goes through my mind. I have the unique opportunity to work with officers and be a non-sworn civilian employee at the same time. So I can kind of see it in different ways. I just hate it happened. I personally don't think it should have happened in light of what's going on. In the back, he didn't look like he was really fast, but that doesn't necessarily matter. He's got a lethal weapon. So I kind of understand it. My mind goes.
I didn't know tasers were considered lethal weapons, though. I didn't know that.
They're part of the force continuum. So we have less lethal, right? However, what Drakes is trying to tell you says, I can hit you with the taser. You're going to be So let's talk about the taser. Fortunately, I used to be a taser instructor. There has to be, its most effective range is 21 feet. At 21 feet, it expands, and there's a 3-foot pull. Those two of when they got to having the fight, they were really close. So the spread is going to be really short. So there's a whole front part of that where they were talking, gave him the standardized field sobriety test. He was good. Probably at this point, I think a lot of other people would have been like, you know what? It's DWIs. Everybody on here will tell you they take forever. All right. So
I've gotten one. I got a DUI in my younger days, and it was expensive, and it took forever.
And it takes forever, right? And some people like doing them, some people don't. It just is what it is. But they did that. Could they have just called somebody? Could they said, hey, you know what? I don't want to not have to do this job. You know, I wasn't there as to the whole beginning of it. Then the second part is the fight. He put a fight on 2 grown men. Now, I don't know what their physical fitness level is. I don't know what they were going through. I don't know if they knew. He said, hey, he's got my taser. And then we see them running. Officer-involved shootings and fights, they happen really, really fast. I think everybody, I mean, we've all pretty much been in a fight as younger folk, or even as an older person, you might have been in a fight. But it happens so fast, and you don't remember or you don't see some things. This situation in Atlanta was definitely unfortunate. We're going to have to let that thing play out with the public, with the district attorney, with their chief just retired, with the mayor and the judicial process and what they put out there, how they go through there. So it's very hard to.
He's been charged with several charges, and one of them is like endangering other people because there were family and kids in the parking lot and they were letting off shots. Look, I'm not. As a civilian who watches that video, I see a man running from the cops, and yes, even shooting a taser at him. But to me, that wasn't equal force. To me, nope. I see that video, and the cop is wrong.
Yeah,
he's just
no doubt. That's a hard video to watch. If regardless of what industry or what uniform you wear every day to work, if you wear a uniform, that video on the heels of all that has happened,
absolutely,
is too much. And to Lieutenant Roman's point, there's a lot of things other officers would have done leading up to that moment. You have some officers that are like, bro, I just want to be sure you make it home safe. Can I drive you home? You say your sister lives around the corner. Can I take you home?
Right.
Can you call her? Can she come and pick you up? And we'll stay here in the parking lot. We'll move your car for you. We won't let you get back behind the wheel if we think you're intoxicated. So there's like a lot of steps along the way. You know, some people are saying in the field of law enforcement, it's not about what you could do. It's sometimes the question and the answer needs to be, what should you do in this situation? A man appears inebriated. You help move his car to the side. If he doesn't seem to be at risk at that immediate time and in danger, is that the right moment to then call somebody to come and pick him up? Is it a time to drive him home if you see where he lives? What are some different things that we can do along the way so that we don't have to have such a tragic end?
Arturo?
Is it me now? Okay. So my this is opinion wise, it's an extremely difficult situation. Just like Ms. Robinson said, just like Drake said, just like Lieutenant Ramon said, there are different force continuums. There are different levels that we go to. Every department is also different. Every state is also different. Atlanta, Georgia, they were just in another issue. They're the ones that had the 2 kids that were tased, correct?
Yeah,
the 2 kids that were tased
right, and taken out of the car, yeah.
Okay, so the thing about that is there's a dangerous precedent being set because you have to be careful which fight you choose when it comes to these kinds of charges. Because the 2 guys that tasered the college kids, they were fired because they considered it deadly force, correct? Now you're turning around and saying, okay, now that the guy at the Wendy's fired at the officer, is it still not deadly force when just a week or two before you called a taser deadly force? So it's almost as if you need to pick which one it is. Is a taser deadly force or is it not? Because if it's not, then you need to give the Atlanta cops that pulled the kids out of the car their jobs back.
Right.
If it is,
that's a super solid argument, and I didn't even think about that because that's what those officers were fired for, is for using the tasers, right?
Because it was deadly force, correct?
Okay.
So now you have to beg the question: if it is deadly force, and those officers were justly fired for tasing the kids in the car, then the guy firing the taser at the officers at the Wendy's was using deadly force. Therefore, him shooting his gun back was justified. That's the other side of the coin. You see what I'm saying? So there's a question here that needs to be answered nationally. Is a taser deadly force or not? Because if it isn't, if it is not deadly force, the Wendy's guy is guilty and the guys being pulled out of the vehicle are not guilty. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
no,
you got to pick.
That's a really interesting point that just made me not question how I feel about the Rayshard Brooks, because at the end of the day, guys, I don't feel like that man. Tackle him, call in another person and chase him on foot. Do like don't shoot him. He doesn't have a vest on. You have protective gear on. You've probably been tased by a taser. You're probably going to survive it. I understand what you're saying, though, Arturo. That's a really good point. Those men lost their jobs because it's considered a deadly weapon. I get it.
It's a hard argument.
It is.
It's a really difficult question to answer, and in a time where the climate is extremely difficult. So I also believe nationwide officers need to be extra careful the coming weeks and months, because whether we like it or not, a change is going to come.
You guys are under a microscope right now. Everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can tell you we had a call the other day in West Dallas. Gentlemen, we get a call about a man passed out in his vehicle. He passed out, he runs around, then he's rolling around in the grass. We get there, we found out it's more excited delirium, but he had been smoking wet, or PCP. Right. Okay. And so we get there and he's rolling around in the grass and everybody's out there. So, we're going out there and we pretty much know exactly what happens as soon as it came out once the officers got out there. However, that being said, 20 people to 30 people and people started coming out and people started pulling over, just videotaping us. The guy had some he was doing drugs. PCP is horrible. And what it does to a person, it makes them super strong. But because we still did our job, we didn't have to fight him this time. This time he was just a very compliant PCP user. But sometimes we've had some that it looks bad because they can fight some people. Right. But I said that, and you said that this was something else that you just said. At this time, what's happening? We just had these protests. Well, last night on Preferred Place, we had a young brother killed, shot in the back of the head. Since the protest here in Dallas, we've had a few murders. And I was like, everything that's going on in our community with the people that looks like us and sounds like us, from just all over. Yesterday in the Galleria. Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, that story broke yesterday. Yeah, in Galleria. Yeah, with everything that's going on, not just us, but I think as a community, as a society, you would think things would chill, but it's life, and people do. You're going to see especially on this department, you'll see the best of human nature, and then you'll see the worst of human nature. And it's us as police officers and first responders as a whole that either A, we're responding to it, or B, we have to clean it up.
And I use a phrase, zoom out, right? So we can't be mistaken into thinking that this is a moment in our history unlike any other moment. What we're wrestling with as a nation, race and racism and excessive use of force, and all of these things didn't just start with George Floyd. They didn't just start yesterday. And so all that we're seeing happening across the world about how people are feeling is a combination of a lot of years of systemic issues happening. They're calling for change. folks have been calling for change throughout this country and throughout the world as it pertains to law enforcement, as it pertains to public safety, as it pertains to criminal justice. And so I always want people to zoom out, because we would be mistaken and we would be doing a disservice to all those who have fought hard and long for all of these years to make these changes happen if we don't know that this moment and this movement didn't just start now, but we're really on the edge of something that has built up and built up and built up that we haven't fully addressed and wrestled with in our history.
I'm happy that it just didn't start now, because if it just started now, we'd be way more behind than we are now. So let me ask you, the executive order President Trump just signed into place for excessive force to reform police in the U.S., no chokeholds. Are you guys okay with that?
So Dallas PD hasn't had chokeholds for like 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
you know, I heard that too. I heard that different police departments have done away with that a while ago.
Yeah, DPD is all the way okay with that. Yeah, that's
sure. We used to call it the LVNR, the lateral vascular neck restraint. That was a chokehold. I've been on 10 years and we haven't had it since I've been on. Lieutenant Roman, how long were you around when they had it or didn't have it?
We were trained with it out of the academy, but as we started to go into the taser, as we started going, we've always had mace, and I've had to go hands-on with some folks, but I've never had to, been in that situation as to having to apply the LVNR. I've seen it done once, but I've never seen it applied multiple times. So in my 18 years, I've only seen it applied once, and we were actually in a full-on fight, but that was about it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think.
Point, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that what is so much about the order that Trump put in is some people feels like it just doesn't go far enough. We don't have, and the reason you can ask that question is because we don't have a national standard of how law enforcement agencies need to handle their business, right? We don't have a national standard of no law enforcement agency will be conducting chokeholds. No law enforcement agency will be trying to get revenue off of tickets. No law enforcement agency will do X, Y, Z. And so with a lack of federal and national standards, you have a patchwork of what agencies do, how they train, the numbers of hours that officers go through training at the academy. And so some people are asking for something that's a little stronger here nationally for outside of what Trump did, a little bit more, because some agencies are already on top of it.
Say this, Cruz. I can say this in August will be 18 years. The things that the Dallas Police Department and everybody else can chime in, we've been pretty much national standards, setting some bars very high. Number one was the vehicular pursuit policy. You can't chase somebody unless we know it's a violent felony. We have the taser. We were one of the few that had the taser. We started the body worn camera. We weren't the first one, but of course, in terms of we're the 9th largest department. We put that, we have that. Other departments don't. We have the automatic vehicle locator. We know where other vehicles are at. We can, you look at the technology that we have within being able to do our reports, share our reports, be able to do some technology things. But you look at some of the things that some of these other agencies are starting to come up with, or some of the new reform or reimagined what we were doing. Just go back, foot policy, our reality-based training. We'd already been doing that. So we have a number of different things that we've done to make policing safe and to keep the citizens safe and make sure that we reduce the liability at the end of the day, what it is. But it's about making sure that we go home. And then you look at some of the units that we have. It was no mistake that, Hollywood came to Dallas to look at First 48, which was everybody's favorite show on a Thursday. Right. And then you had Dallas SWAT. And as a former member of Dallas SWAT, we worked with the National Tactical Officers Association, to help use some of those tactics. And there's a reason that, unfortunately, the the city has suffered from some crime, and sometimes you have to utilize SWAT. But the tactics and the techniques that we use you haven't had anybody shot in a SWAT operation in a very, very long time. And that's because we've been very, very safe, and we've been able to end that situation peacefully.
And just one more point. I want, when people take a look at the order that Trump put in, the wording he used around chokeholds is not that it's forbidden, but I think it's right.
To protect, unless the only time they're allowed to use it is to protect their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I like the database, the federal database, to keep track of cops with too many, not citations, but incidents of excessive force. And I like, I think some of the stuff was banned. They're trying to ban the rubber bullets and the gas cans or whatever. But I do feel, like you said, Jolie, a lot of people felt like it didn't go far enough, but some people do feel that at least we're headed in the right direction.
Right. Right.
So kudos to that. I have heard a lot about people, defunding the police. And at first, that thought I was confused with, because picturing a world without police, to me, is scary, right? Because could you imagine not having police? Now, I've heard the argument that it's rotten to the core. It started way long ago when it was racism and the KKK, and it has ties to all that. And do you guys feel that maybe some departments might be so rotten, we're better off getting rid of them completely? Do you feel that every department is salvageable, and we paint an uglier picture than what it actually is when it comes to police departments? And I also feel like, the lower level cops could be good guys, but if the top level guys, the guys in charge of things, like the guys in charge of the union, the guys that have been there for years, that can really have the power, if they're rotten, does that not ruin the whole system?
So let me take a stab at that. So after listening to it, and they put defunding, and then they kind of got everybody start thinking like you started thinking, thinking that we were going to go away. Now the whole reimagining public safety, what that looks like. I don't think there's anybody here or on Dallas Police Department, if you ask, it's not that we can't do it, but you put a lot at our feet. And a lot of that responsibility goes with other city departments, such as quality of life issues. Like we respond to quality of life issues. We respond to animal bites. Well, we have SPCA, we have animal control. Right. Why are you having a police officer go out there? When we go out to mental health calls, we never really know what that means. But if they say, hey, it's a mental health call, we'll go, and it takes 4 officers and a supervisor to go out there. And sometimes it's just a quick trip to the psychiatric ward. It's here, and it takes time, right? You got to work the process and get it done safely. But then sometimes, if it's a mental health issue, sometimes it becomes where you end up having to use force. And that job, we don't mind as officers if you have a private hospital or the public hospital, be it Parkland site, that they have the private ambulances and they go out there. There's no violence, there's no gun. I don't think that there's not an officer out here would say, no, we should still be doing it. No, they was like, that would be great, because that's not a police call. Panhandling, you have Office of Homeless Solutions. You have those folks that specialize on the civilian side. If we could fund them through whatever funding that they come up with, that it's not in the police hands. So we sometimes, as police officers, and even Chief Brown said before he left, that you put a lot at the police officers' feet to solve a lot of those societal issues that, for some reason, not every other department either has been tasked with it. But now it's an opportunity for those city departments, community departments, and our county departments, rather. And then for that most, look at our public-private entities to work together, or volunteer programs to help us address some of those issues.
I've heard the argument that we expect cops to be counselors, and that's not fair to you guys. Drake, would you like to?
Well, I've heard all the stories. You come to domestic violence calls, homeless calls, all kinds of calls that are not like LT said, that are not police calls. I always tell people, if you're 18 years old, to go on a run with the cop. Sign off on the
like
waiver.
go
A
for
ride
a
along.
ride, right? A ride along.
Yeah, do a ride along and see what cops go through, and then it may not change your mind, but it may give you a good idea of what cops go through on a daily basis, day in and day out. It's not just that night that you're on and I said night because, go at nighttime. You may feel comfortable in daytime. Go when you're not comfortable, but the officer still has to go during that time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Go during that time and get an indication or an idea what cops go through. And then you may say, okay, I see now. It may not change your mind, but you can say, I see now what they go through. So I kind of understand what you're talking about, And I just want to say this while
go ahead, please. Because the initial question was, do you feel that it's rotten to the core and it needs dismantled? Do you feel like you can take what you have now, we can make it work, we can make it better? Because a lot of people believe that it needs destroyed from the bottom it completely for it to ever get better.
That's like being perfect. I think if you find an agency, I only work for Dallas Police Department, so I know more about that than any other department.
Absolutely, yeah, you're talking for your own.
But I think if there was if they found an agency, I take Ferguson. I think the federal government came in and took over that and kind of cleaned up some. I think there was a culture of bad things going on all around. I even had a chance to go to Caruth Police Institute, and there was a chief who came who was on the board, and he said when he went to Ferguson, there was only one person out of maybe 100 people who they would say is good enough to go to a promotion because of the culture. They gave all answers that didn't seem right. So things like that. But
so they gave the officers like psych evaluations almost, and you got a feel of who was.
Well, he was a part of a board, a promotion board.
Oh, okay.
And they came for the next level up, and based on what they had as answers, there was very few of the officers that they would select to go to the next level. If you find a culture problem and it's deeply embedded, you go from the inside out or from the top down, and you go that way.
Okay. But every police department isn't the same. And what one might need, the other one doesn't need. So unfortunately, it's an even harder job because you can't just do the same for all. You got to do different things for each department.
Right. Yeah. There's one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would not work with these guys that you see on here if I thought that there were not just a few good cops.
Right.
If I thought for a second that I didn't work around good cops all the time,
right.
You take this box and make it black, I wouldn't be here.
Right. And that makes sense. You guys are black men and brown men. I can't imagine you going to a place where all your top heads are racist bastards. Like, why would you put yourself through that? You understand? I'm not trying to be funny, but like when people say martial law, I have a hard time believing that our men and women are going to come and just shoot their own people on their own land. Like, it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? So I understand for me to believe that you guys willingly work somewhere where you're not loved because of the color of your skin. Why would you work there?
Exactly.
Yeah, the conversation around. I'm sorry, Arturo, were you about to speak?
I was just gonna answer his question. Go ahead, Jolie.
Okay, so the conversation around defunding police. I know it's really been a sticking point. The words itself.
Yes, because at first that's what confused people. Sorry, Jolie, was the defunding, because a lot of people, you can't get rid of the police. We need police, and then people are like, no, it's like taking money and investing in other things. And then I was like, oh, well, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So in the circle of friends that I have and we talk about, we prefer people not get caught up on the words to miss the message of the point that it's trying to make, right? Some agencies, when people look at how those agencies have served people of color specifically, now and in the past, they look at those agencies and say the only way those agencies will do what they are set up to do, and that is protect people and serve folks, is to demolish it. There's no other, they can't think of it. There's no other thought because of the culture aspect and how deep culture can run through and through a police department, the only solution some people can think of in that moment is, well, we have to
get rid of it.
We have to dismantle that agency. Right. We have to defund the police. There was a city, I can't even think of it right now, that did just that, right? They started from scratch. Let's start from scratch and build up from here. Because sometimes
Camden, New Jersey.
Well,
it was, yes, it was New Jersey.
Northeast.
Yes, it was in New Jersey.
Camden, New Jersey.
Campton. And they said a lot of the new programs that they brought in, like their crime rate has dropped, community and police connection has increased. You know, they're more involved. They have parties and picnics with the community. So whatever they've implemented over there is showing to work.
Right. Right. And so we would be remiss if we say, because we see a case study right there that tells us it could work. It could work to tear it down and build it up from scratch with a more collaborative approach in public safety. That is what people are asking for. Officers are working within our communities. Several of us live in the city of Dallas. And so when officers are working in our communities, we want to see safety happen, right? But we also want to not be afraid of officers. We want to be able to live in peace, love in peace, and enjoy what the city of Dallas has in peace. So we are all looking for a collaborative approach to public safety. And when we're talking about the defund police and we're having those conversations, we really would be remiss if we did not talk about the whole criminal justice system that has not always served Black and brown folks in an equitable way. And so, you know, we can take one piece of the thread and say, okay, in law enforcement agencies, we need to do X, Y, and Z. But to Lieutenant Roman's point, there are a lot of agencies and organizations that could be doing the work of the people a lot better than a law enforcement agency could perhaps be doing.
Right.
But budget cuts happen over the years, you know, sales taxes dry up. And so a lot of different county, city, nonprofit, governmental agencies then have to look to the police department to do some of those things that now they are having to add to their toolbox.
I heard, oh, go ahead, Arturo, go ahead.
So I was going to piggyback a little bit off of, I thought Jolie was going to go there, but she didn't.
Jolie, you didn't go there.
Well, she was kind of going there and then she didn't go. So what I was about to get at is it's about laws that are in place, okay? Police officers, all we do is enforce laws that were put in place, correct?
Right.
It is up to the citizens of this country, whatever you do, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, whether you work at Chick-fil-A, whether you're a cop, whether you're a gardener, whatever it is up to you to vote in people that will make laws that benefit you or don't benefit you, that do what you want to do. For example, crack epidemic in the 80s. I was born in the mid 80s, so I know people that lived through that. Crack cocaine gave you a minimum sentence, right? What was it, 25 years in California?
That's crazy.
But regular cocaine, uncut cocaine that wasn't crack, didn't give you that. So you get 2-3 years off of some regular cocaine. You were better off just having the pure cocaine instead of crack cocaine, which is technically cheaper. So the cheaper cocaine targeted poor people, and regular cocaine was up in the air and all good for rich people, right? Well, in the modern 2020s, what you're seeing today is there's a new invention, which is vaping pens with weed.
Yeah,
right?
The liquid. So, and you get way more time for the liquid, right?
So today, you can catch a felony for having a vape pen. Mm-hmm. You're better off just having a pound of weed in the car as opposed to a vape pen. The vape this little pen, because it's concentrated, will catch you a felony and give you time off of weed. Whereas you could have just had a whole pound in the back seat and you would have caught a misdemeanor B or misdemeanor A. Call it a day, get some probation. So we have laws in place that it is your responsibility to vote in or out people that are going to go for what laws that you want. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So you have to change laws for us, whether to be able to enforce or not to be able to enforce. You see what I'm saying? And I only use marijuana and cocaine as an example because the disparities between the two were extremely apparent. And today in 2020, there's a disparity between people using vape pens and catching felonies, and as opposed to just having pounds of weed. I mean, and this is targeting specific demographics of people that if you want it to change, it's going to be up to you to vote in people to change those laws. Because otherwise, police are still going to be able to enforce those laws.
Arturo, but I also feel like it's really important for men like, you know, guys like you in your position to make that statement that you just made. It's important for us to know that cops think it's wrong to charge a felony for this, and it's disparaging in communities of color. You know, I'm just saying, you making that statement is a promising thing, because we don't get to we from the other side, we don't get to hear that perspective from a cop. We just know he's busting us and happy to throw us in jail.
Well, cops fall along the political spectrum. Let's not get it twisted. Cops fall along the political spectrum, just like average Joe falls along the political spectrum.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
I just want to throw that out there, because I don't know if you knew, Cruz, about Arturo spearheading or part of the people who did the Black Lives Matter Ilio March and Black Police Association March a week or so ago?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that right there I thought was very important, that the people knew that we did not like, the police department did not like what was going on, what happened to George Floyd.
Right.
It was important for them to see us stop by Botham John's old apartment and call his name. It was important for them to see that we're fed up, we're upset, we're disgusted, just like they are.
Like
and the police come from the community.
No, right.
Everybody else. A lot of people don't see that though. You know, once they see the pass, the gun, the badge, it's automatic that they think something else.
It kind of sucks, because once you put the badge on, it's like, now you've crossed over to that side.
Absolutely.
Now, you know, I can't tell you my darkest, deeper secrets anymore, because you're on the other side. Which, you know, let's think of, I mean, look, a police officer will risk his life to help a stranger, a complete stranger. You guys literally took an oath to put yourself in the line of fire to protect somebody you don't know. Somebody who in the long run could not even like you. You know what I'm saying? But that's not what you do that. So listen, I'm happy you guys took the time out today and really do this and have this discussion with me. I learned a lot, and we are going to do a part 2. I want to ask you one last thing. I've heard some ups and downs about police unions. Okay, I've heard a little bit up and down. I haven't decided how I feel about them completely, because unions overall can help a worker. Unions can help the individual, protect the worker. But do you feel that unions have made it almost impossible to hold, or not impossible, very, very difficult to hold cops accountable sometimes? Jody, your face looks like it's gonna blow up.
I was gonna see if Martinez was gonna answer that. I can definitely weigh in. I
kind of felt like you were ready. You were like, "Oh, I'm ready for this one."
Do it, Jolie.
I got this. Give it to me, Jolie.
The associations here in Dallas, they came about for reasons to protect officers, to help them get promotions, whether they were Black or Latino, to help ensure that that if something happened and they might have had an investigation, that the chain of command that may like them or may not like them was not too heavy-handed in doling out the punishment or the consequence. So I can't say, similar to associations for teachers or auto workers, I always say that associations have served a great purpose for employees that they are there to serve. Now,
but
there is a difficulty as a chief of police. I'm not one, but I've been in the room. There is a difficulty oftentimes when a chief of police may be trying to institute policies, maybe that the community is asking for, maybe that is just, you know, the next wave of police reform that we need to be thinking about. And associations may come to the table. And we have, how many associations, Martinez, in Dallas?
We have 3 major and 1 executive one.
Right.
One for like the chiefs and stuff.
When all of those different associations may have their own thoughts, suggestions, their own wants that they're bringing to the table, and they represent a wide swath of officers, it makes it difficult for change to happen. The flip side, and Lee Kleiman, Councilmember Lee Kleiman brought this up about the donations that city council members, again, we go back to politics. There is money that politicians can be receiving, have received here in the city of Dallas from some of our associations that may make it hard for change to really happen if change needs to happen. Now, in the good glory days, those elected officials can be supporting officers in whatever way. But when it comes time to some difficult change that must happen, sometimes that can be a barrier. Okay. And it can make it more difficult to make change happen within an organization when you have powerful associations with really good connections, not just locally.
Right. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Federally as well.
Right.
To make change happen that may be absolutely necessary.
Well, I feel that everybody's got a spotlight on them from every department and from every level, and I hope that that people just wake up and look. Everybody, we're all being watched. We all got to do better. We all just got to do better. So, I don't see this as an easy black and white solution. I do think it'll take time. I do think we're headed in the right direction, and more conversations like this, more Zoom interviews with all you wonderful people and all these beautiful faces. Arturo, I want to give you a heads up on all you do with the Hispanic community and the programs. Drake, I know you do the same thing with the African American communities. And
Jolie's our boss. She's the one that spearheads all of this. She made LGBT happen, African American, the Asian, the Hispanic, all that. I mean, a lot of these are Jolie's thoughts and ideas.
She's the brainchild.
That's the brainchild. Unfortunately, I remember we interviewed Renee Hall on the morning show that we used to have recently, and it was when she first kind of got on. And regardless if you like her or not or agree with what she's done, I got to give it up to her because she has not had a break since she's gotten this job. Issues that she had to deal with one after another. And, she seems like she's holding strong and hasn't cracked under the pressure. So kudos to that. And I do hear a lot of positive things about the Dallas Police Department. You guys have been doing the program where a social worker will come out to certain police calls with you guys. You guys have been you guys have been implemented that. So I like the progression. I like the forward thinking, and thank you for sharing your time with us today and just, talking from the law enforcement's point of view. The brown man's.
Follow me. This is Jolie. You can follow me on Twitter at Jolie DPD, at JOLIDPD, if you want to keep the conversation going. I'm always
right. Jolie, keep that up. Seriously, keep that up. Seriously, because obviously you're very intelligent. You know what you're talking about, and you speak well, and you cover the issues well. And you're a black queen. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Oh yeah, fellas, we all gotta do this. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate all you guys. Be safe out there and keep up the good fight. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all want respect and equality, and we all just want to be treated the same.
I'm looking forward to part 2.
You got that right. It's coming. Hopefully, it's for like better news, though, right? It's not like we got to meet again for another. Oh my God, because I can't take this anymore. All right.
Let me say this. Hey, thanks for reaching out to us, keeping the communication line open and getting out to the people so they can hear it from our side. And we appreciate that because you gave us another avenue that sometimes might give this demographic 97.9 reaches out to some people that are not necessarily heard. So this is a great opportunity for the police department to talk to 97.9 because a lot of times you'll figure out that even in our squad cars, we're jamming 97.9.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, shouts out DJ Elusive, Quick Mix Rick.
Absolutely. Arturo, thank you. I gotta give it up to Arturo, guys, because he kind of reached out to me about this, and
thank you, Arturo.
Because I kept thinking to myself, man, I'd love to have some police officers on just to, get the perspective from a police officer. So this was even more than I expected. Thank you so much. And till part 2.
Yeah,
sir.
Sure.
All right, guys, have a good one. Be safe.
I'll text you, bro.
Peace.
Absolutely.